Well, let's first make clear to everybody what we mean by Swamp Fox.
Please.
That is his Secret Service code name. And of course, it was given by the Secret Service to the Treasury Secretary in honor, or at least to respect, Brigadier General Francis Marion, who was a figure in the Revolutionary War and the French and Indian Wars back in the 18th century, who also traces his family history to Huguenot origins. And so does the Treasury Secretary. So there's a little bit of great American history in that code name.
Everybody's lived this. This is a guy who grew up in a fancy family, and they went under.
Twice, bankrupt twice. The family business,
How does
real estate business.
How does that color Bessent theology?
Well, you can imagine what it's like to grow up, as he says, in extreme privilege and to have lost it all. I think it fires in a man or a woman. It doesn't matter, where you start in life, a sense of ambition and a thirst to claw back what you once had and knew and distinguished your family. There's no question that this particular Treasury Secretary did that many times over as a hedge fund manager, working for George Soros, running his own firm, going back to Soros, running a second firm of his own, Key Square, before he became the president's nominee for Treasury Secretary and subsequent confirmation.
Bessent likes to call himself the nation's top bond salesman, but
that's a tongue-in-cheek.
He's a lot more than that, though.
That is very tongue-in-cheek.
Because I see him doing so much more in terms of trade issues. I mean, his responsibilities that the president gives to Mr. Bessent are far beyond what maybe
it's one of the reasons you see him on television, as he was on Bloomberg television this morning so often, is because the president clearly trusts him.
Right.
Doesn't just trust him to speak on behalf of the administration, but also trusts him with an enormous range of responsibilities. You mentioned that he's involved in trade deals, not just China, Japan, Indonesia, South Korea, and more.
Is he running the IRS this week?
He is the acting commissioner of the IRS for the time being. That's true. And he's also been instrumental in shepherding bills, in particular, the One Big Beautiful Bill, through Congress over Republican opposition. And he's now taking a hard look at the single biggest asset on the government's balance sheet, $1.7 trillion in student debt. Nobody's been able to crack that thus far. The president has asked this Treasury Secretary, figure this out for me, Scott.
Okay, I want to go detail in the interview. The best part for me was when John was asking him about tariff dynamics, and they walked through a clear tax paid by the original exporter, paid by the corporate importer bringing it into the country, or paid by the consumer. In your reporting, which was much more about the guy.
Oh, we talked about that too.
Yeah, what did you learn about the path of tariff angst?
He believes that most of the impact of the tariffs is going to be borne by the exporters, right? The companies that manufacture the product and send it to the United States, and then the middlemen.
Does Mark Carney
and then
agree
the
with
middlemen.
that? Does Mark Carney agree with that?
Hard to know. I haven't asked him. Quite honestly, I'd like to. Let's make that a thing,
get
shall
off
we?
Your butt. Are you going to Alaska?
I'm not going to. Anne Marie's going to Alaska. I'm not
Ottawa's
going to
only
Alaska.
halfway to Alaska. You could go up and see Mark Carney. One more, Eric. We're going to. It's 8 o'clock, folks. We welcome all of you across the nation. I can't say enough, folks, about the interview you just heard dovetailed with Erik Schatzker's lengthy journalism on Mr. Bessent as well. Give us one final observation about what surprised you about the Secretary of Treasury.
I'll tell you, the thing that he wants everybody to know is something that we put up very high in the story, this concept of leverage. You heard him talk about the president's leverage in this interview that he did with John and Anne Marie. The Wall Street is taken with this notion, global Wall Street, as you would put it, Tom, is taken with this notion of taco. Trump always chickens out. And Bessent couldn't have been more clear multiple times in the interview. You don't understand the way that President Trump thinks. He wants to scare people. He wants to push them to a position where they are uncomfortable and see what happens then. This idea that Trump chickens out, he says it's just not true. The president, as he put it in his own words, has a higher risk tolerance than I do. Those are Scott Bessent's words.
Right.
And so when you see the president going to a place and then subsequently unwinding it back or wheeling it back, it's not because he's chickening out. It's because he has now seen what the adversary is willing to do when pressed as far as he could go.